Today's destination spotlight is crowned the theme park capital of the world. But while the parks are an obvious draw, there's a lot more to this Florida gem than you might know. So if Orlando, Florida is on your radar, stick around because we've got a lot to discuss. Here's a 30-second teaser of the episode.
Visit the springs. There is a place to go tubing, beautiful crystal clear water. You're in the forest with nature. It's just absolutely magical. Here in Florida, we were lucky enough to host the space shuttle program, and we still have rocket launches going on. We have seen over 50 alligators sometimes, and some of these are cute little babies, and some of them are the real big boys out there. Orlando is such a melting pot that we have just about any cuisine that you could possibly want.
Welcome, everyone, to the Travel Lemming podcast. I'm your host, Betty Hurd, and I'm a senior travel writer and podcaster here at Travel Lemming, as well as a full-time flight attendant. Today, my guest is someone you've seen before. She and our founder, Nate, talked all about Disney World for first-timers back in episode 4, and now she's here to talk about Orlando beyond Disney. Before I introduce her, listeners, I ask that you go ahead and hit pause so you can give us a 5-star rating on the show, as well as like and subscribe. We post new episodes about travel topics and incredible destinations around the world on Thursdays. Now, welcome back to the show, our Orlando expert, Katie Neufeld.
Hi there. Thank you for having me.
Yes, absolutely. Good to have you back. Katie's our theme park queen, so if you want to visit Disney, Universal, you name it, Katie has dozens of incredible guides on Travel Lemming, so check those out after the show, especially if you need tips on traveling with little ones. So Katie, can you tell us a little bit more about your Orlando expertise?
Sure. Yeah. I have lived here in Orlando since I was 4 years old, although I pretty much consider myself a native at that point. I grew up in Disney's backyard, and I have loved exploring all around town here. I mean, the places that most people visit on vacation were my field trips as a kid. So it's a lot of fun to get to share all of those experiences with everyone.
And you used to work for Disney,
I
correct?
did. I was a cast member for 12 years before becoming a mom and then a travel writer.
Amazing. I love that so much. So, like we said before, that's why you're our theme park Disney queen. So, Katie, as a quick pitch, why should somebody visit Orlando?
So this is going to be a little cliche, but there is truly something for everyone. And I know a lot of cities can say similar things. And Orlando is, of course, known for their theme parks. But in addition to that, we have some fabulous outdoor nature spaces. We have many animal parks for all those animal lovers. And then for kids and families, there is so much to do around town.
So, can you distinguish Orlando from Central Florida for listeners who may not know the layout of the state?
Sure. This is something that I think the locals get a little picky about. What's Orlando versus Greater Orlando versus Central Florida? But for the most part, if you are flying in to MCO and Orlando International and hitting any of the attractions, you're in the Greater Orlando area. Now, Central Florida sometimes extends all the way out to Tampa on the West Coast or Daytona Beach, Cocoa Beach on the East Coast. But for travel purposes, I consider kind of the whole center of the state to be Greater Orlando.
Gotcha. Okay, a lot of ground to cover.
Yes.
And that's helpful too, especially for the topics we're going to discuss in this episode. There might be some things that might stretch beyond Orlando. So listeners, keep that in mind. So jumping right into that next topic, then we'll go ahead and start with what are the best things to do in Orlando?
So this is very hard to narrow down because I think if you add it all up, we have hundreds of individual attractions around Greater Orlando. So of course you have the theme parks, which is a huge draw for families, anybody who loves the roller coasters, just kind of stepping away from the real world. You have, Harry Potter over at Universal. You've got Avatar, Star Wars over at Disney, and SeaWorld is actually known for their roller coasters now, of all things. But on top of that, we also have beautiful, beautiful outdoor spaces from state parks to city parks. The springs are one of my favorite places. We have natural springs all over the state and a couple just a short drive from Orlando.
Yeah, I feel like Florida has some of the most unique landscapes I've ever seen in my entire life. I mean, growing up in Arizona in the desert, it is so vastly different with like the Everglades and the alligators. Alligators or crocodiles?
Well, we have both
Yes,
actually, but the
alligators.
alligators are the
Oh my
the
gosh.
common one.
Didn't even realize, but it's so unique and it's so gorgeous and green and the water, and it's really such a stunning state.
Yeah, there is water everywhere. Yes, there are also alligators everywhere, but we do have so many unique places and things for people to see that if you just visit the theme parks, I think you're doing yourself a bit of a disservice.
Very good to know. So, with all these things that you've mentioned, what are your personal top 5 attractions in Orlando?
Okay, so outside the theme parks, if you want to go for the more touristy destination, I love Icon Park on International Drive. It has the big Orlando Eye Ferris wheel, which you can see from just about any skyline view. And with that, they also have the Sea Life Aquarium, which is fantastic for little kids. They have tons of smaller and lower aquariums and viewing spaces, educational stuff. Kids absolutely love it. And then, of course, we have the Madame Tussauds Wax Museum, and I know that there are quite a few people who love to visit all of the wax museums around the world and see all the different celebrities that they have and all the different outfits. So you can definitely check off if you're one of those wax museum bucket listers. And then if there's multiple celebrities, I think they have different outfits at each one.
Yeah, so you can knock that off the list. I love it. And what are some other attractions that you love?
Another one that would be considered Central Florida, maybe not quite Greater Orlando, is the Kennedy Space Center. And I always include this because there are only a handful of NASA visitor centers that people can go to. And here in Florida, we were lucky enough to host the space shuttle program, and I don't even know how many launches. And we still have rocket launches going on, specifically with SpaceX and the new Artemis program going on. And the cool thing is, because Kennedy Space Center is such a popular destination, a lot of companies will offer bus rides from the Orlando area hotels, so you can do a day trip without even having to worry about transportation.
Oh, that's awesome. Very good to know.
Then my personal all-time favorite thing to do here in Orlando is to visit the springs. Now, Orlando proper does not have any, but there are a handful of springs that are within a 30 to 45-minute drive, depending on where you're staying. And our family's favorite is Kelly Park Rock Springs. There is a place to go tubing. It's about a 25-minute float from the head spring down beautiful crystal clear water. You're in the forest with nature. It's just absolutely magical.
Katie and I talked a little bit about this before we started recording. I've only been to Orlando one time for an extensive period of time, not just a layover. And my friends and I went to Wakiva Springs. Is that how you pronounce
Wakaiva.
it? Correct. Wakiva Springs, which you were saying is in that Apopka
Yeah.
area. And it was so, so stunning. We were just floating along, kayaking on this incredible clear water, and there were alligators just popping up here and there. And it was kind of crazy to me, but just such a wonderful experience. And you can just pull up your kayak to little bars that are alongside the river too. It was so fun, like such a great experience.
Yeah, that I think goes in that Florida man category of having like the
Yeah.
kayak up bars.
Oh my gosh, I've never done anything like that before, and it was like my favorite part of the entire trip was visiting the
I
springs.
love that. And, you know, some people are not a fan of the alligators, especially if you haven't grown up around them like us Floridians have. They might seem a little scary. So, another thing that I love to recommend is a wildlife drive where you can see these alligators from the safety and comfort of your car. Plus, you can also use air conditioning, and that is up at the Lake Apopka Wildlife Drive, which is also not far from the springs that we were discussing. And it's about a two-ish hour drive that you go through next to these wetlands on the edge of Lake Apopka. And we have seen over 50 alligators sometimes. And some of these are cute little babies, and some of them are the real big boys out there.
Oh my gosh, that's incredible. Just a bunch of swamp puppies out there.
Exactly.
What are a couple more of your favorite things to do near Orlando?
So, for families or maybe just a rainy day activity, I love the Orlando Science Center. We have a few different museums, but most of them are more adult focused. And the Orlando Science Center is very family and kid focused. They have special areas for the little toddlers to play and learn. And then they go all the way up to dinosaur skeletons. They always have on the weekends, some of their docents are out doing experiments, teaching the kids. It's just such a fun way to spend an entire day or maybe just a rainy afternoon.
I love that. And we'll get into weather and rain and all of that in a little bit later,
Yes.
so we can discuss what to expect weather-wise too in a moment.
Yes, I have one last honorable mention for my top things to do, which is a very quintessential Florida visitor activity is to go on an airboat ride. These are very popular down in the Everglades, but a lot of people don't realize that just south of Orlando in Kissimmee is the headwaters of the Florida Everglades. And so the water from here in Central Florida flows all the way down to the Everglades. And we do have the swamps and the airboats and everything like that as well.
Very cool. That was actually another thing that I did during my trip, and it was so, so amazing to, again, just get to see the alligators so up close, but from the safety of
Yeah.
the boat. And they even let us hold a little baby one,
Yeah.
which I was really kind of nervous about, but they were like weirdly very friendly and
They
sweet.
are.
Yeah, they're kind of adorable, you know? Break the stigma on the
Yeah.
alligators. I love that. Well, thank you so much for all of those suggestions on things to do in and around
Of course.
Orlando. So, with all of these, yeah, with all of these incredible things, where do you suggest someone stays who maybe has never been to Orlando?
So, for first time visitors, I have two location recommendations. First off, if you're planning on just visiting the theme parks, be that Disney or Universal, I recommend staying at one of the resort hotels because they have so many perks, including free transportation. Usually, you can get early entry to the parks, things like that. So, if you're only doing Disney or Universal, I would just stay there. There's budget friendly options all the way up to luxury options. So, that's typically my recommendation. Now, for people wanting to explore all of Orlando, Greater Orlando, or Central Florida, the whole area, then International Drive is the most central spot. It's pretty close to Universal, maybe about a 20-minute drive to Disney, and then I'd say no further than 20 to 30 minutes from most of the major attractions.
Okay, awesome. And we'll also get into how to get around a little bit later.
Mhm.
But it's really nice that you mention, especially for families, since Orlando is such a big family destination with all the theme parks, just to kind of take the headache out of transportation from these places,
Yeah.
to stay at a place that kind of wraps all of that into one must be such a relief.
It is definitely. I think it's worth every penny to spend to stay at Disney or Universal just so you don't have to worry about driving and parking.
Oh, yeah, I'm sure. Do you have any suggestions for where budget travelers can stay in Orlando?
I do. There are definitely some cheaper hotel options, but the one that I recommend the most is the Drury Inn. There are two locations. There's one closer to Universal, and then there's one actually on Disney property around the corner from Disney Springs. And the thing that I like about Drury Inn is they include a complimentary hot breakfast, and they also have what they call their 5:30 kickback, which is basically dinner and drinks that you can partake in. So for me, I'm always looking at where I can save a few bucks, and food in Orlando is not cheap unless you're eating, quick fast food or maybe picking up some stuff from the grocery store. So I think saving money on food is a huge way to help the budget. In addition to that, the Universal location offers free shuttles to Universal, and the Disney location offers free shuttles to Disney as well. And this is not sponsored. I've actually never stayed at these hotels, but I have friends who have, so they absolutely love them. They also offer free soda and popcorn in the afternoon, and then the Universal location also offers free parking. So if you are driving or have a rental car, that's definitely something to look for because a lot of the hotels in town have resort fees and or parking fees.
Free stuff is
Oh
always
yeah.
great. So, all wonderful tips. And I can attest to the Jury Inn as well. I used to stay at the one in Flagstaff, Arizona when I would visit my brother who was going to college there. And just like you said, we would go and just have this really good breakfast and then a little happy hour time in the evenings. We all would just, my entire family would just pile in there and we had a great time and it was always super affordable. So, very good tip. It's definitely a great hotel to stay at. What are some other notable places to stay in Orlando or the greater Orlando area?
So, the main place that people will stay in Orlando is definitely closer to the major theme parks and the attractions. And Universal and Disney have their own themed hotels, but we have a couple other fun ones, such as the Gaylord Palms and Margaritaville Resort, which are down closer to Kissimmee on the Disney side of town, if you will. And then if you want to stay downtown, one of the best hotels is the Grand Bohemian. It has absolutely beautiful rooms, a lot of art focus. So you'll see a lot of art throughout the restaurants, down in the lobby and the hallways and stuff like that. And it's great if you're doing any of the sporting events or maybe seeing a show or anything like that downtown.
Great to know. So, outside of some of these hotels, are there any other kind of accommodations you'd recommend staying in?
So Orange County, where Orlando is located, actually does not allow entire unit short-term rentals, so whole home rentals on VRBO, or I think it's Verbo now, right? Verbo,
Something
Airbnb,
like that.
any of those. So you can do where you rent a room in somebody's house, but if you're looking at a rental option for maybe a bigger group or a large family, you're going to want to look down in Osceola County in the Kissimmee area. There are a lot of rentals down there.
Very helpful note. When do you recommend visiting Orlando?
I think the best time to visit Orlando is going to be the spring or the fall, but around school holidays. Holiday weekends, Thanksgiving week, things like that are always busy.
Yeah, and how is it in the summertime with the humidity?
The heat and humidity, I think, are the two factors that keep people away the most during the summer. But of course, you have families or parents who work or have tough schedules where you vacation when you can. So I totally understand it, but the heat is definitely something to consider when planning your travels.
Oh, yeah. The one time I visited, it was during, I believe it was in June or July, and it was quite humid. I'm so not used to that. And so it definitely took like a little bit of an acclimation period of a couple days just to get used to that feeling, like the
Yeah.
sweatiness. But it wasn't that bad though. Honestly, my skin was like the greatest it's ever been.
Yes, I mean, I joke that I'm a reptile at this point living down here because I love the heat and humidity, and as soon as you put me in a dry climate, I'm, like, parched and just drinking water nonstop, slathering on moisturizer.
Oh my gosh, you might want to avoid Arizona then. So, how much time do you think someone should spend during their trip to Orlando?
If you're doing the theme parks, I generally recommend about a week, depending on if you're trying to hit everything or maybe just spend a couple of days. For the other Orlando attractions, I think 5 to 7 days is a good number. But again, it always depends on what you want to do. I recommend that people kind of see what there is to do in Orlando, make a priority list, and then plan out your time from there.
Do you think a long weekend is doable? And if so, where would you recommend someone stays for that shorter amount of time?
Outside the theme parks, I'd say staying on International Drive is a great spot for a long weekend because there are several smaller attractions along that road. And there's also the iDrive trolley, which is maybe our only good public transportation here in Orlando. But that's another one because I'm always looking to save money. It's only, I think, a few bucks per day to be able to ride along.
Awesome. Well, all great things to know about. So, now I want to talk a little bit about safety. Is Orlando safe? And is there anything that you might suggest people should avoid during their visit?
I would say that in general, Orlando is safe. Just like I think every major city, there's going to be places that are considered more safe or less safe. In general, the
Of
places that
course.
the tourists are visiting, the theme parks, the main attractions are relatively safe with normal precautions, being aware of your surroundings, not leaving valuables in the car, locking the car, things like that.
Yeah, and especially if you visit the theme parks, they always have lockers and that kind of thing available so that you can protect your belongings, correct?
Yes, I think all the ones that are coming to mind, I believe all the theme parks have lockers. Some of them have them just for the rides, but others you can just lock your stuff up for the day if you'd prefer to do that.
That's good. Yeah, and I would assume, with such a being such a kid-friendly place that they're fairly safe and renowned for that kind of reputation.
Yeah, I would say myself taking my young son out, the thing that I worry about the most is the weather. Like that sounds a little silly, but when I'm at the theme parks, I do feel very safe and I'm very comfortable bringing my family there and not worrying too much about anything.
So moving right along, what are the best ways to get around Orlando?
Well, I will tell you public transportation is not it. We do not we do
Okay.
not have any sort of commuter rail, subway system, anything of that nature, unfortunately, and the buses are also not great unless you are on like a theme with a theme park. So Disney offers bus transportation from their hotels and some of their partner hotels, same with Universal, same with SeaWorld. So those buses, fantastic. The general Orlando and Orange County, unfortunately, not so much. We do
Mhm.
have plenty of rideshare options with Uber, with Lyft, but those are subject to pretty extensive surge pricing. And also, depending on your location, it can be very pricey to get around town.
Yeah, and I mean, Orlando is kind of spread out if you want to visit multiple kinds of things like you were talking about earlier. So, I mean, when I went, we rented a car, I believe it was $50 a day, and that was the price of maybe one Uber, a 30-minute ride. So I think renting a car would definitely be very worth it there.
Definitely. Yeah, it kind of goes back to if you're visiting the theme parks and you're staying at one of the theme park hotels, you probably could get away without having a rental car because your only transportation
Right.
would be maybe to and from the airport. And then once you're there, you can just use the Disney buses or the Universal buses to get around. But yes, if you want to head pretty much anywhere else around town, I think the rental car is typically the cheaper option.
Great to know. So, my favorite topic on this show is asking people about local cuisine. So, is there any kind of local foods or drinks that you recommend people try when they visit Orlando?
So Orlando is such a melting pot that we have just about any cuisine that you could possibly want. I don't want to be dramatic when I say from around the world, but genuinely, we have so many options. But a couple of my favorites are really the Hispanic and Brazilian restaurants. And by Hispanic, we have Mexican, we have Puerto Rican, Venezuelan, just anything you could possibly want. So many fantastic restaurants around town. We also have a really great Asian food scene in the Mills 50 district, which is just on the north side of downtown Orlando. There are so many fantastic restaurants, just like with Hispanic food, every flavor of Asian cuisine as well.
That all sounds so good. Do you have a favorite dish, like a favorite Hispanic dish that you would always order?
So I absolutely love a good taco truck or a good arepa truck, like a chicken arepa
Oh,
with
yeah.
cheese and garlic sauce. I would eat that every single day of the week.
Sounds incredible. Is the Cuban influence as strong in Orlando as it is in Southern Florida?
Tampa has a much larger Cuban food scene and Cuban population, but we definitely still have some here in Orlando, and that's another one. Fabulous food. One of my favorite restaurants is
Oh,
up in
yeah.
Mount Dora, which is a little outside Orlando, but absolutely delicious.
Gotcha. So, do you have any places that you might recommend going out if somebody wants to go maybe to the bars or just like a specific area or your favorite restaurant that somebody should try if they're in the Orlando area?
So when I was younger, I loved hanging out down in downtown Orlando. We have a place called Wall Street, which is a little street of bars basically, but it's not quite my scene anymore, and I've actually heard that since the pandemic, it never kind of came back to life after all of the closures, unfortunately. So I actually, to take it back to the theme parks, I usually recommend Universal City Walk or Disney Springs if somebody wants to do like a little bar crawl or grab appetizers somewhere, grab drinks somewhere else, and kind of float around because both of those locations have so many delicious restaurants and bars.
Yeah, what is that thing? It's like the bars around the world. Is that Universal?
Oh, drinking around the world at Epcot. That's another one.
Yes,
Yeah.
Epcot. Okay, that I see people post about that all the time. And I remember the first few times I was like, how are these people going to all these places in such a short
Yeah.
time? Because I thought they were like literally in the locations. Can you tell us a little bit about that? Because I feel like that's such a fun
It
experience.
is. It is so much fun. So in Epcot, they have the World Showcase, which is around a little lagoon, and it's 11 different pavilions for different countries. And drinking around the world, if you want to do the safe version, you typically split with friends and just do like a couple sips here and there and go all the way around.
Uh-huh.
And if you are a real trooper, you can do one entire drink in every single country. I will tell you, I have never made it all the way around drinking by myself.
Oh my gosh, how many
Uh,
country stops do they
11
have?
countries.
Oh my Lord. Yeah, it's gonna take several days, I think, for most people.
Yeah, when my husband and I go, when we leave the kiddo at home, of course, we will just like split a drink at maybe 5 countries. That's where we draw our line.
Yeah, that's so fun. And for anybody watching on YouTube, we'll include some photos of that because I feel like it's just such a fun experience and it's kind of hard to grasp the idea of it until you're actually there. And again, I've never done it myself. I've gone to Universal, but not to Epcot yet, but it's definitely on the bucket list.
Yeah, it's a lot of fun. And one of my favorite things for people who are either first timers or who maybe only visit every few years, a lot of times people will have special t shirts for drinking around the world and they check off the countries as they go. And there's also a company, I believe they're on Etsy, that does temporary tattoos. Like, so people will put the country list on their arm and check it off
Oh
as
my
they go.
gosh.
So, like, 21st birthday, any major celebration, people go all out.
That is so funny. I love that. So, I mean, on that topic, do you have anything to say for people who might think that these parks are really only for kids? Because obviously there's a lot of adult options and so many different things to enjoy that aren't just like, little rides or that type of thing. So what would you have to say about that?
Yeah, when I say Orlando is for everyone, the theme parks are also for everyone. And there are so many adults who come down and have great vacations. My husband and I love to go to the parks, and anytime we can get a babysitter and leave the kiddo at home. Of
Yeah.
course, you have the thrill rides, which are going to be your roller coasters, a little more intense, a little more fun. And both Universal and Disney have really been stepping up their food. So there are a lot more food and drink options as well.
That's awesome. Well, thank you for the tip on that. Do you have any other specific tips travelers should know before visiting Orlando?
So the biggest thing that I always tell people is to plan ahead. Like I said, if you listed them all out, there's probably over 100, if not 200 different individual attractions around town. Some are very small, a couple-hour visit, all the way up to the theme parks where you could spend multiple days visiting the same park. So I always recommend planning ahead and make your own priority list. What sounds fun to you? What would you like to do? And then make the rest of your plans around that. If you know you want to check out a bunch of spread out attractions, then maybe look at those hotels on International Drive that are pretty central. And like we talked about, look at the rental car versus trying to Uber to save money. I'm all about saving money. So like 90% of my tips
Oh,
are
girl, me
saving
too.
money.
Of
And
course.
then the other thing is also to look up parking. If you are at the attractions and staying at many of those hotels, you often have to pay for parking, or it is going to be street parking, or you have a little bit of walk. That's just something, as an anxious mom, I always want to know what the parking situation is. So I recommend checking that before you pull up to a parking kiosk and find out that you have to pay $20, $30 on top of whatever ticket you've already purchased.
Is there any Orlando etiquette visitors should know before they go?
So this one might sound a little silly, but it's definitely something that us locals always joke about, is to not block the walkways. Wherever you are, whether you're at a theme park, on the sidewalk, honestly, even in the road sometimes, just step to the side. If you've got a big group and you need to stop and figure something out and chit chat, that is like, if I polled my friends, that would be the number one complaint that we have when it comes to etiquette around town. And then the other one is a little more serious. It's to respect the wildlife and our natural spaces. If you do get out to explore and visit some of our parks or go to the lakes, the springs, anything like that, please don't leave any trash behind. Make sure to clean up after yourself, and then also respect the wildlife. The alligators, like we joked about, I think they're awesome. They typically don't bother you if you don't bother them, but if people are feeding them or harassing them, then they can become a nuisance. And unfortunately, the alligators, we have so many, they are often not relocated if they become a problem. They are taken to the farm.
Taken to the
Yeah.
farm. Yeah, we all know what that
Yep.
means. Yeah, which is tough. And I wanted to ask about that earlier too when we were talking about safety, because I'm sure a lot of people who have never seen one before, some people are either, afraid of them and keep away, and then other people think that they can just walk right up to them and take photos and, just make poor decisions, which never usually ends well. So, yeah, that's a good tip to respect the wildlife and respect them from afar.
Yes, definitely. Do as I say, not as I do, if you
Absolutely.
go on my social media and see me way too close to an alligator.
Oh no. I know, and me talking about holding the baby
There
alligator.
are
That was in a controlled
Yes, there
environment.
are many safe ways if you really want to see the alligators or any other Florida native wildlife. Like Gatorland is another great park that you can visit where they have a ton of native species. You can get up close, you can see them in a very safe and respectable way.
And Gatorland was the very first theme park, that's what I read when I was doing some history
Yes,
reviewing. Is that
I
true?
believe that's correct. I believe it's the longest running, the longest open park in
Okay.
Orlando.
Very cool. Well, so to wrap up, what is the ultimate reason or reasons you believe travelers should visit Orlando?
So Orlando started off as a sleepy little town, and then Disney came knocking, and we just became a place for entertainment. Ever since Disney opened in the early 70s, it's just been bringing in more and more visitors, more and more attractions, restaurants, things for people to do. And all of that tourism money turned around and allowed the city and the local area to preserve so many natural spaces and parks for not just residents, but visitors as well. So Orlando really is for your entertainment. There's just so many things to do.
Thank you so much for sharing your expertise. I think so many people, again, like we've been saying, only visit for the reason of seeing theme parks, and maybe that's kind of all they associate with Orlando, but there's so much more to the city. It's so beautiful. And I really appreciate you coming on the show and telling us about your home.
I'm so happy to share. I love helping people with their Orlando vacations and getting outside the theme parks. Love the theme parks too, but getting to see a little bit of everything else as well.
Absolutely. So, for listeners who want to do a deeper dive on Katie's expertise, she has dozens of guides on Travel Lemming. So, if you plan on visiting Orlando, or if you just have questions about visiting a theme park, whether it's one in Orlando or outside of it, she has some really great tips just for visiting them in general. So, go to travellemming.com, type in whatever topic you've been thinking about since this episode, and she's got a guide on it. And also, please make sure to like and subscribe to the show. Again, we are posting on Thursdays. And if you could give us a thumbs up on this episode, give us a pause right now and do that before you walk away, that would be amazing. We also do community meetups. So if you go to our website, travellemming.com, you can check out on the homepage. If you scroll down just a little bit, you'll see all the cities that we do these meetups in, where you can come and talk about travel with a bunch of like-minded people over a pint. So you can check that out and see if we're doing that in a location near you. Well, that is everything for today. Thank you so much again, Katie, for being here. It was so lovely talking about Orlando with you.
Thank you so much for having me. I'm happy to share.
Absolutely. And I'm sure we'll have you back one of these days soon. All right. We'll see you next time on the Travel Lemming Podcast.